In lesson 613, we are having an application, estimating your reaction time. You will need the materials from your Portage material pickup, so just be aware of that. Go ahead and get your whiteboard marker, and your math journal. You also will need some sort of timer that you can use on your iPad or if you have another device to do that. All right, would you number 1 to 3 on your whiteboard, please? Number 1 to 3. All I do is want you to put in greater than, less than, or equal sign for each of the 3 problems. Two and 5/10 is greater than 25 hundredths. 110 and 5/10 is less than 115. And 81 and 3/10 is equal to 81 and 30 hundredths. All right, let's do the same thing again. Number 1 to 3. Greater than, less than, or equal for each of the 3. $638 thousandths is less than 6 and 4/10. I know the number appears like it's larger, but look at 6. 6 in the ones place, 0 in the ones place. Number 2 is equal to, I can put zeros behind it and it would equal 7,110 thousandths. And number 3, 9 and 958 thousandths is greater than the second number, which is really a long one. But it's the thousandths place. 8 is larger than 7. And last warm-up problem with this type of problem, number 1 to 3, greater than, less than, or equal to. Number 1 is equal to, I can put zeros behind there, doesn't change the value. Number 2, 913 and 7/100 is less than 913 and 1/10. The first place they're different is in the tenths, and 0 is less than 1. And number 3 is greater than. 3 in the hundredths place is greater than 2 in the hundredths place. In your math material pickup at Portage material pickup, I should say, there was an activity sheet 18. It's called Grab It Gauge. So cut out the Grab It Gauge on activity sheet 18. Read the directions for the reaction time experiment on the next screen. It takes 2 people to perform this experiment. The tester holds the Grab It Gauge at the top. The contestant, which is you, gets ready to catch the gauge by placing his or her thumb and index finger at the bottom of the gauge without quite touching it. Okay, this is you. This is your helper. This is mom, dad, older brother, sister. So your fingers the paper is in between, but you're not touching it. When the contestant, you, is ready, the tester, your helper, lets go of the gauge. The contestant grabs it as quickly as possible with his or her thumb and index finger. The number grabbed by the contestant, you, shows that the person's reaction time to the nearest hundredth of a second. The contestant then records that reaction time in the data table shown below. Partners take turn being tester and contestant, so you can have your helper try it as well. Each person should perform the experiment 10 times using his or her right hand. So each time you might be, let's say, 17 hundredths of a second, 22 hundredths of a second, 1600ths of a second. So you will record all of your reaction times in seconds in the 10 boxes. And this is on journal page 230. This was on page 230, yeah. So you're going to then write your reaction times in order from fastest to slowest. The shortest amount of time to the longest amount of time. The smallest decimal to the largest decimal. What is the difference between your fastest time and your slowest time? So you're figuring out difference. So if my longest time was 2200ths and my fastest time was 1600ths, then I would go ahead and subtract. Then continuing on page 231, says use the results of your Gravit experiment to answer the following questions. Remember, SEC stands for the abbreviation for seconds. So which time came up most often in your results? Number 4, look at the times in order from fastest to slowest. What time is in the middle? Hint, your middle might fall between 2 times you have listed. Number 5, your class decided on a strategy to identify each person's typical reaction time. We're not going to worry about this part, okay? We may share these together when we're in math small group, but don't worry about that portion yet. There is another part on this page that talks about a hand squeeze to travel around your whole class. We won't worry about that either. So this is the point where you're going to stop the video, or you can finish watching it and do the math boxes, or finish the hand grab, the reaction time, and then finish your math boxes. So it doesn't matter. Just make sure that you complete that reaction time activity and record that information in your math journal. So either you're going to wait until the end after you're done with math boxes, or you're stopping the video and doing that portion now and completing this part later. On math boxes on page 229, it says the data in the table show how many women's shoes of each size were sold at a shoe store in one day. Use the data to make a line plot that answer the questions. So there were 3 pairs of shoes at size 5. So 1, 2, 3. There were 2 pairs of shoes at size 5.5, which is a pretty small foot. Size 6 had 5 pairs. There were none sold that were size 6.5. Size 7, there were 6. Size 7.5 had 7. Size 8 had 7. Size 8.5 had 4. And size 9 had 2. So if you were a shoe store owner, what size would you stock the most of? Which size shoe was not sold on this day? Well, 6.5 does not have any shoes sold. Which size or sizes were most frequently sold on this day? There's 2 of them. It would be the 7.5 and 8. Continuing on page 229, fill in the exponent to make a true number sentence. So 3,700 divided by 10 to the what power would give me 37. So remember, the decimal point is hiding right there. We don't use it because there are no 0 tenths. So remember, when we divide, the number gets smaller. So in order for that decimal point to be after the 37, we would have to move it 2 places. Divide by 10 to the second power. B, we're dividing again. So the decimal point is right here. So we have 0 tens, and it moves 1, 2, 3, 4 places to get between the 6 and the 7. So 10 to the 4th power. And C, the decimal point is here right now. We're moving it 1, 2, 3 places. We are dividing by 10 to the 3rd power. Number 3, 9 and 3/5 minus 8 and 6/7. Choose the best answer. Well, Mrs. R has to write it down vertically. I'm going to change each one to 35ths. I want you to do this on your math journal page as well. You're going to multiply by 7. So if you're going to multiply the denominator times 7, you better multiply the numerator times 7 to give you 21/35. Multiply the denominator in this one times 5, so multiply the numerator times 5 to get 30. Now here's the problem. I cannot take 30/35 and subtract it from 21. So I'm going to borrow from the 9. Make it equal to 8. I'm going to take that and turn it into a fraction that has the same denominator and numerator. I have to add the 35/35 to the 21 that's already there. 21 plus 35, I'm kind of running out of room here, is 56/35. So 56 minus 30 is 26. 26/35, and 8 minus 8 is 0, so just 26/35. Notice, though, they have answers that all have 35ths on there, so if you were just guessing, they all have 35ths, and then they try to confuse you, is look at these two answers right here are really close, except for if you didn't borrow from the 9 and make it equal to 8, you would have gotten that one wrong. Number 4, last one. Darian has a $20 allowance to pay for bus fare. He is keeping track of his spending in the table. Plot the data from the table on the grid, connect the points with a line, and answer the question. So, number of bus rides. 0 has $20 left. One bus ride, 18 left. So, over 1, up 18. 2, 16. Over 2, up 16. 3 bus rides, $14. Over 3, up to 14. I'm going to connect those dots as best I can. How many bus rides will Darian be able to take with $20? Well, it looks like it's 0. He'll have 10 rides. Don't forget to complete the reaction time experiment.